Hello, Assalamualaikum. Terima kasih kerana masih menonton Astro Awani dan ini Bisnes Alternatif bersama saya Hilal Azmi. Apa yang menariknya tentang Bisnes Alternatif hari ini ialah kami akan menceritakan kepada anda tentang Big Data. Apa itu Big Data dan bagaimana ia menguntungkan? Ikuti pembincangan yang telah kami sediakan untuk anda.
Do tell us about what is big data?
Okay, basically big data is about unstructured data that you can collect through various of means, such as from social media, from all the sensors that you collected, for example, all the weather, all the sensors that you collected, and also it's basically about a huge amount of data that you collected that you can use this data for data mining, so that it will be beneficial for corporation to process the data and do analytical on the data, so that they can create product and services for the end user and to improve their conversion rate and etc.
Okay, now why is it important everyday people like me should know about big data and how does it play in one's life?
Okay, when you talk about big data, to every people on the street, basically if you use social media, you are in a big data environment already. Basically, the information that you post to your Facebook, the video that you post up, is all big data. Company can actually use this information to process and to come up with products and services that suit the individual.
Now, how does AIMS, for instance, use this big data to benefit AIMS?
Okay, we basically we are an infrastructure provider. We enable big data in a way that we have data center. We allow company to put all their storage, all their server, all their processing equipment in our data center. So from there, basically, we help them to host all the equipment.
I see. Yeah. Now, how lucrative is this business for AIMS?
Well, in Malaysia, it's in the infancy stage. It's just like cloud. A few years ago, everyone is talking about cloud services, but lately you can see that the adoption of cloud, there's a pickup, and everyone is asking about cloud. When they ask about infrastructure, they ask whether you provide cloud services and so on. So there will be a paradigm shift. I see that in a few years' time. So now everyone is talking about big data. There's a lot of conference and so on big data. But in terms of adoption, it's still at the very early stage. I believe that within the next few years, the adoption will be picking up. And in a way, it's good for data center as well. Because you are talking about large amount of data. You need to process this data. And this data need to be delivered, processed real time and delivered to the end customers. That's where AIMS can play a part. We can provide the infrastructure layer for company to store all this data and do a processing on it and to be meaningful to the corporation.
Do tell us how does time comes into play when it comes to big data industry?
Well, big data basically is generated all around, whether it's in branches, whether it's on the internet, or maybe in mobile devices, or maybe sensors all around. So when you have all this data generated on the ends, you've got to find a way to transport all this data back to a center where you actually crunch it, process it, and make business intelligence out of it. And once this business intelligence is generated, you have to make it into something that's actionable, that you can actually push all these actions back to the endpoints where the agents are, where your sales force is, and they actually can execute on those actions and actually bring back value to the customer. Here in face, customers like FSI, insurance, banks, and so on.
Okay. Now, how lucrative is this segment of business is for Time.com?
Well, we've seen that things that can be digitized has already been digitized. Case in point, music. The way we buy music is through iTunes nowadays. The way we buy books is through probably Amazon or Kindle and such like that. So we view that the next transaction that's going to be digitalized is actually FSI, banking transaction, financial transaction. So Time.com as a company, we are able to provide high bandwidth, high volume, highly secured network to actually enable this digitalization that's going to happen in the future. And we see that we are positioned in such a way that we are unique partners together with our FSI customers to enable that to happen.
Baiklah, Bisnes Alternatif berehat dulu seketika dan kita kembali lagi selepas ini. Kembali lagi bersama saya Hilal Azmi dalam Bisnes Alternatif. Tadi kita dah tahu Big Data ini berjaya membantu sektor telekomunikasi dan juga pengurusan. Dan sekarang ini kita nak tengok lagi bagaimana sebenarnya Big Data ini yang mempunyai potensi besar mampu membantu sektor tenaga dan juga keselamatan. Saksikan perbincangan ini.
Big data needs security, and then that's where RSA comes into play. Enlighten briefly, how does the relationship between RSA security and big data go?
So we know that big data is very essential for businesses today, right? Because it provides a lot of intelligence for the business, for them to grow and expand. But at the same time, when you talk about big data, there's always an element of risk involved, right? Because you're talking about all the structured and unstructured data in the organization. So how do you protect that, right? So RSA is leveraging that big data, collecting that vast amount of information, right? Whether it's historical data or new transactional data, and then we are analyzing that data to come out with information about, user behavior, for instance, or user access behavior, for that matter, right? So all this data is going to help customers to be able to secure their environment, to also determine that their users are who they claim to be, so that you have a safe and efficient access into their company system.
Okay. Now, when you talk about security and big data, how does you secure those big data? How does the security work in terms of the big data?
All right. So RSA technologies deal with a couple of areas, right? We look at the perimeter security in terms of the types of cyber threats that are facing organizations today. So companies need to secure their environment in order to make sure that threats do not enter into the environment. And if they do, we are able to provide early warning to the customers for them to remediate and prevent the outflow of sensitive information. So that's one way that we are doing it. We're also helping our customers on the consumer side, for instance, the financial services or e-commerce companies, to protect their core business transactions, right? So what we are able to do is, using the analytics on the big data, we can determine the difference between what is actually the legitimate user or what is a fraudulent user. So because the bad guys will always behave differently from the good guys. So we profile the behavior of customers across all the entire web sessions, and then from that we know what is normal behavior for users. So if a fraudster or a cyber criminal comes in, he's going to do actions that are going to deviate from the norm, and then we'll flag it up straight away.
All right. Now, how lucrative is this relationship between security and big data for your RSA?
I wouldn't say it's lucrative. I would say it's essential to the business. Today, the data is growing, right? Whether businesses can control it or not, it's going to keep growing, and it's growing at an exponential rate. So having that security there is going to safeguard the companies against the risk, so that they can carry on expanding, become more profitable, gain market share, at the same time secure their customers and make sure that they are not at risk, and their reputation and their market share is actually protected.
How does Schneider Electric comes into play when it comes to big data?
Okay, so Schneider Electric has two plays into big data. One, we help our clients protect and support the infrastructure that allows them to utilize big data. So that's one. And if we look at that area, we concentrate on three areas. One is agility, efficiency and availability of the big data, and the technology, making sure that the infrastructure's got the agility to change as that technology changes. And if we look at one of the latest trends in the data center is virtualization. So we make sure that a data center can adapt and change to the technology changes like virtualization. The second place Schneider Electric has into big data is how we use big data to service our own customers. And currently we're running a program called digitization. So pretty much every component and product that Schneider Electric manufactures from now on will be digitalized. And that will allow us to record multiple amounts of information around energy management, process that big data, and provide it back to value-added services to our clients around energy management, so how they can better utilize energy in the future.
Now, how lucrative is this big data, this segment of business is for Schneider Electric?
So again, two parts. If we look at the explosion in the data center business in the last 10 years, then it's been a very big focus for Schneider Electric, and we develop a lot of our products and solutions and technologies now to cater for the changes in the data center market, and that's a primary revenue generating exercise for the organization. And then our new ventures to generate revenue in the future will be based more around the value-added services that we have around energy management, and that will be through the digitization program that we're running on our solutions.
Baiklah, itu saja paparan kami untuk Bisnes Alternatif kali ini, dan jangan lupa untuk terus ikuti kami melalui Facebook, Instagram dan juga Twitter @501awani, dan saya Hilal Azmi. Kita jumpa lagi di episod yang akan datang. Bye-bye.